Okay, I know what you're thinking. This looks like a super dry technical document, an EASA Airworthiness Directive. But trust me, buried inside all that jargon is a really powerful story about the invisible system that keeps us all safe when we fly. It's a system that's always looking ahead. And this document, well, it's a perfect example of that system in action.
So let me ask you a simple question. The last time you were on a plane, did you ever wonder what exactly is holding your seat to the floor? You're cruising miles above the ground. What's the one thing physically connecting you to the body of the airplane? It's actually way more important than you probably think.
Well, the answer is this right here, the passenger seat track. This is pretty much the unsung hero of the aircraft cabin. It's this high-strength metal rail bolted directly to the fuselage, and it's what every single seat locks into. These things are designed to withstand absolutely immense forces.
And you know, they're really doing double duty. On a normal flight, they just keep everything locked down. But their most critical job, the one we hope they never have to do, is during an emergency landing. They have to hold firm against incredible G-forces to keep everyone safe. They're a fundamental link in that whole chain of passenger safety.
So, why are we talking about this one specific directive? Well, it's because a potential issue was found with these critical parts. But here's the most important thing. This problem wasn't discovered after an accident. It was found during routine checks on the assembly line and during regular maintenance. This is the safety system working exactly the way it's supposed to.
So, what was the risk exactly? The European Union Aviation Safety Agency, or EASA, they don't mince words. This quote from the directive gets right to the heart of it. A potential issue could lead to a failure, specifically during the high-stress, high-impact forces of an emergency landing.
And when you really break that down, the consequences become crystal clear. First, a seed that comes loose could directly injure someone. But just as bad, if not worse, it could become a massive obstacle in the aisle, blocking an emergency exit when every single second is critical. The stakes here are incredibly high.
Okay, so a potential risk has been flagged. What happens now? This is where the industry's safety net really kicks in, and it involves two key players: ATR, the company that builds the plane, and EASA, the regulatory authority that makes the safety rules for Europe.
EASA's most powerful tool is something called an Airworthiness Directive, or an AD. Now, the best way to think about an AD is like a mandatory, non-negotiable recall for a car. If an AD is issued for a part on a plane, airlines have to comply with it. It's not a suggestion, it's the law if they want to keep that aircraft flying.
So it all follows this really clear chain of events. It starts when the defect is found and reported. Then the manufacturer, in this case ATR, jumps in and creates a service bulletin. That's basically the how-to guide for airlines on fixing the problem. And then, finally, the regulator, EASA, steps in and makes that guide a legal requirement by issuing the Airworthiness Directive.
Right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts. What exactly does this directive, AD 2025-025, actually tell the airlines to do? This is where we see who's affected, what they have to do, and crucially, how long they have to do it.
And the directive is incredibly precise. It doesn't just say all ATRs, it applies to all ATR 42 and 72 models, but then it drills down to a specific list of part numbers. And look at this detail. They've already identified that newer parts from certain suppliers don't have this issue, so those are totally exempt. That's how granular this process is.
The main task required is what's called a one-time detailed visual inspection, or DVI. And believe me, this isn't just a quick glance. It means a trained technician has to meticulously examine every single affected part, following the manufacturer's exact procedures to the letter.
And what about the deadline? They have 26 months. Now, that might sound like a long time, but it's actually a very carefully chosen number. It gives airlines a realistic window to schedule this maintenance across their whole fleet without causing huge disruptions to flights while still addressing the risk in a timely way.
But what if a mechanic does find a problem? Well, the urgency of the fix depends on where they find it. If there's an issue right where a seat attaches, that's an immediate risk. That part has to be replaced or repaired before the plane's very next flight. If the problem's somewhere else, they have more time, up to 24 months. It's a really smart, risk-based way to handle things.
The whole point of this entire process is to make sure every aircraft only has what are called serviceable parts installed. And a part is considered serviceable if it's either a new part that's not on their naughty list, or it's an older part that's been inspected and given a clean bill of health. That's how the system brings the whole fleet up to a verified standard of safety.
So let's zoom back out for a second. It's really easy to see a document like this and think,
whoa, there was a problem with that plane. But the real story here is the exact opposite. The fact that this potential issue was found and that this comprehensive fix was put in place, that's not a sign of failure. It's absolute proof of a mature, proactive safety system doing its job perfectly.
And that's really the most important thing to take away from all this. An airworthiness directive isn't a red flag telling you something is dangerous. It's a green flag. It's a sign of a safety culture that is constantly looking for ways to improve. A culture that actively hunts down potential problems and fixes them long before they have a chance to cause any harm.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. This seat track is just one of thousands of parts on an airplane, and every single one has a story of design, testing, and constant oversight. It makes you wonder, right? What other invisible systems, what other detailed documents and tireless checks are working behind the scenes 24/7 just to make sure your flight is as safe as it can possibly be? It's a good reminder that sometimes the most important systems are the ones you never even see.